Behind my ears roared the wind, gravity rapidly dragging my body toward the cold, hard cement ground. During those brief seconds of falling, the last image etched into my vision was of a group standing at the very edge of the rooftop of the teaching building. School beauty Daisy, clad in a pure white dress, held a beautifully packaged cup of bubble tea, a flawless and innocent smile on her face. Behind her stood class president Leo and top student Zoe, along with classmates who usually greeted me warmly. There was no look of panic in their eyes, no trace of guilt for having pushed someone off a skyscraper. Instead, only a near fanatical indifference and numbness. "Claire, why do you keep preventing everyone from becoming better?" Leo's furious shout seemed to still echo in the air. "Daisy sincerely offers everyone free immortal milk tea every day that boosts our concentration and refreshes our minds, doubling our review efficiency. But you go around slandering her for adding harmful ingredients. You're just jealous she's more popular than you. Jealous she stole your first-place rank." Thump! In an instant, searing pain devoured my consciousness, crisp and nauseating bone-cracking sounds resonating. Blood gushed from my facial orifices, soaking through the school emblem on my chest. With wide-open eyes, I stared up at the sky shrouded in haze, boundless hatred and regret bursting into grotesque, unutterable sobs. All I had done was receive preliminary lab test results on that cup of milk tea. All I'd wanted was to prevent these greed and illusion-blinded people from ruining their own futures. And yet, they themselves pushed me into hell. Never, never again. "Claire, wake up! Our class has to march in formation." An abrupt shove yanked me from that endless darkness and agony. I burst awake, breathing heavily, cold sweat soaking my back. But instead of the dull ache of shattered bones, what surged through my chest was the wild trembling of my heart. The sunlight was so blinding it stunned my eyes. There was no hard cement below me, no reports fluttering across the sky, no me lying in a pool of my own blood. Instead, I stood at the center of the school's massive sports field. All around me echoed cheers and an upbeat marching band tune from the loudspeakers. On the podium hung a huge red banner with white text. 100-day oath-taking ceremony for senior class 3. Sprint toward the college entrance exam. Forging glory. My trembling hands rose, my skin smooth and intact, not a single scratch. I touched my neck. The bones felt perfectly fine. I swiftly turned my head to look at the nearby electronic display board. The date blinked clearly. March 10th. I had been reborn. Back to the day all tragedies began, the 100-day mark before the college entrance exam. Last life. It was after completing the ceremony that day when Daisy unveiled her so-called family secret recipe-free bubble tea brand, boasting of dramatically enhancing memory and concentration. Last life. With my keen intuition from chemistry and biology, I had detected something wrong with that unusually sweet-smelling liquid the first moment I saw it. So I publicly questioned its safety and advised others not to drink unlicensed products. But Daisy led with tears followed by plummeting grades and immediate improvement, publicly humiliating me. I instantly became public enemy number 1 among the class, merely to meet my gruesome downfall. "Claire, what are you doing standing there? Pinned by fear?" A shrill voice rang beside me. I turned and saw Zoe's mocking face. At this moment, she was radiant, her eyes gleaming with ambition. "Everyone look! Our original school champion Claire is spacing out during the oath-taking ceremony. Is she frightened by the 100-day countdown?" Class President Leo chimed in beside her, condescendingly snobbish. I took a deep breath, crushing the lingering silence within my lungs. When I looked up again, the panic on my face had vanished without a trace, replaced by an expressionless calm. In my previous life, I saw them as companions who needed rescuing, trying to pull them out of the quagmire with reason and science. But they thought I was blocking their future and joined forces to send me to my grave. This life, since you all are so eager for that poison bait, then I will personally serve up the sweetest of poisons to you. Nothing much. Just a bit excited, I said with a smile, my voice as calm as stagnant water. At that moment, a commotion arose from the edge of the crowd. The students who had surrounded us immediately parted to create a passage. Amidst flattery and cheers, a girl in a custom school uniform with cascading long waves stepped onto the podium. It was Daisy. She carried several elegant insulated boxes and wore her trademark sweet smile. Yet a barely noticeable ambition and calculation lingered in her eyes. "Classmates, Today is a crucial milestone in our 100-day pledge ceremony. Daisy began gently, her voice amplified through the microphone on the podium and spreading across the entire playground. To help everyone reduce exam preparation pressure and improve review efficiency, I've specially brought our family-developed mind enhancement tea. Every student gets 1 cup, free until the end of the college entrance exam. The whole audience immediately erupted in cheers. Leo clapped first and even whistled excitedly. Daisy is truly our savior. Not only beautiful and kind-hearted, but always cares about all of us. Zoe rushed forward eagerly, grabbing the first cup of milk tea. She guzzled a big mouthful in front of everyone and then wore an expression almost delirious with satisfaction. Goodness! It's amazing! I feel my brain has instantly cleared. The formulas I couldn't recite earlier are now crystal clear. Hearing such feedback, the surrounding students' eyes lit up, scrambling forward and jostling eagerly for the tea boxes. In my previous life, at this moment, I stood up, snatched the cup from Zoe's hand, and loudly accused this as not complying with food safety standards. But this time, I remained standing quietly on the outskirts of the crowd, hands in my pockets, coldly observing this absurd revelry. Daisy stood at the center of the gathering, basking in the attention of everyone, and suddenly her peripheral vision caught sight of me standing at the edge. The confrontation from my past life had left her cautious of me. She deliberately picked up the cup of milk tea with the most luxurious packaging and walked to me in high heels. Claire. Daisy inclined her chin slightly, a hint of provocation and test in her voice. I heard you used to care a lot about healthy eating. This one was saved just for you. Aren't you going to try it? It's really effective for staying alert. All the surrounding voices seemed to fall silent at that instant. Leo and Zoe curled their lips, waiting to see me, as usual, reject her earnestly and once more becoming everyone's target. But I only smiled faintly and, to everyone's astonishment, calmly reached out and took the cup of milk tea. A cool sensation drifted from the plastic cup. A sweet aroma, one from my past life that I had utterly abhorred, sweet yet subtly bitter and thickly perfumed, drifted to my nose. Thank you, Daisy. I looked into her eyes, my voice unbearably gentle. Since this is everyone's goodwill, how could I possibly let it down? For a moment, an expression of surprise flickered across Daisy's eyes, apparently not having foreseen such a drastic change in my attitude. But soon, that surprise was replaced by an air of proud superiority. I'm so glad you like it, she smiled. I glanced down at the milk tea in my hands, a trace of cold, icy brightness flashing in my eyes. The crisp snap of the straw piercing through the plastic film echoed loudly. Under everyone's gaze, I brought the straw to my lips and took a deep breath, yet my tongue precisely pressed against the straw opening, preventing a single drop of liquid from entering my esophagus. Then I looked up, and a nearly surprised smile appeared on my face, exactly the same as Zoe's in the previous life. Really amazing. I feel like my mind has never been this clear before. Immersive translate. The cheers from the playground were rising one after another. My divine commentary landed like a huge rock into hot oil, completely exploding the entire senior 3 grade. The staunchest opponent from my past life, the straightest student Claire who always spoke with data and facts, actually gave in right after her first sip, becoming Daisy's free milk tea's most hardcore endorsement. Even Claire said so. Oh my god. After just one sip, I feel completely awake and refreshed. Daisy, you're our savior. Is this tea really going to be free every day? Faced with such near fanatical adoration, Daisy slightly raised her chin, a self-satisfied smile hard to hide in every corner of her eyes and brows. She turned to look at me intensely, and for the first time, the wariness and suspicion in her eyes finally vanished entirely, replaced by a condescending gesture and mockery. Of course, as long as you need it, I'll provide enough right up until the last second before the college entrance exam. Daisy spoke sweetly, hands clasped together in a saintly pose. Beside her, the class president Leo eagerly clutched his cup, gulping it down like nectar, a sickening sense of satisfaction spreading across his face. With narrowed eyes, one glance flicked toward me, his tone laced with sarcasm. Well now, isn't this our usual most scientific, rigorously minded Claire? How come, facing the law of real fragrant, you've simply abandoned all your principles? as long as it's effective. Promoting study efficiency. Principles. Principles, what matters is usefulness. I replied with a faint smile, raising my milk teacup in a gesture of admiration. In the past, I was just too narrow-minded. Daisy's selfless dedication, I admit, surpasses mine. Zoe snorted coldly next to me, flattening her empty cup before tossing it into the trash, then immediately grabbing another. Good of you to see sense. Some people's excellence is innate. Don't think rank number 1 entitles you to act like a know-it-all. I didn't argue, just silently observed them all. On my way back to the classroom, I casually slipped the milk tea, one merely stained slightly by the straw, untouched, into the side pocket of my backpack. Entering the bathroom, I locked the stall door behind me, pulled out tissue paper, and meticulously wiped off the minimal residue that had stuck to my lips and teeth during my earlier taste test. Then, I pulled out a sterile, sealed sampling bottle prepared beforehand from my backpack, carefully poured the remaining milk tea into it, affixed a label, and tucked it back into the most hidden inner pocket. The thick, almost unnaturally sweet aroma filled the cramped stall. In the previous life, it was upon smelling this exact fragrance that I grew suspicious, secretly tested the sample, and discovered it contained profoundly concealed powerful central nervous system stimulants and addictive compounds. Such ingredients could briefly extract maximum potential from the brain, creating an illusion of keen thinking and boundless energy. But once dependency formed, stopping consumption or insufficient doses would lead to severe headaches, hallucinations, sudden memory degradation, even permanent nerve damage. Daisy wasn't some saintly savior. She was merely forcing this illicitly loaded confection onto everyone, using their intelligence and bodies as stepping stones to her climb to the top. But this life, I won't block anyone's path anymore. After returning to class, the atmosphere grew unusually eerie. Normally during lunch break, half the students slept while the other half silently did problem sets. Today, however, the whole classroom seemed injected with a stimulant. Every desk had one of those milk teas with a logo, red-lighted looks flashing in everyone's eyes, pen nibs rapidly scratching across paper, frantically copying, calculating. So good. So good. I've done 3 sets of math tests without getting tired. Leo wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, his eyes widening with excitement to the point of distraction, and he kept muttering under his breath. Me too. I got stuck on that physics big problem for 3 days, and after I finished the milk tea, it suddenly clicked. Zoe screeched, taking another big, hard sip. Daisy sat in the very center of the classroom, like a tall queen, receiving flattery and gratitude from all directions. She glanced at me from time to time, as if confirming my condition. I immediately looked down, pretending to be absorbed in my revision, casually flipping through a collection of wrong answers, my face perfectly displaying a kind of anxious determination. I'm benefiting a lot from this too, and I'm scrambling to keep up. At break, Daisy, for once, walked over to my table proactively, holding a list of the class study groups. Claire, she whispered softly, the baseline test is coming up soon. Everyone sees you've been in good form lately and hopes you'll share your study plan. Also, I have milk tea delivered every afternoon on time here. I've reserved a dedicated portion for you. Thank you so much, Daisy. I looked up, showing an extremely sincere, even somewhat obsequious smile. If it weren't for your milk tea, I wouldn't be able to finish this set of papers this afternoon. Sharing the plan is no problem at all. We'll all improve together. Hearing my reply, Daisy smiled satisfactorily, the last flicker of suspicion in her eyes completely gone. Then keep it up, and don't let me outdo you, she joked, then strode toward the podium, continuing to distribute her grace. Watching her departure, a cold arc curved at the corner of my mouth. The higher you raise something, the harder you crash. Daisy, you think you've used this cup of poison to control the whole class and to hold my lifeblood in your hands. But you have no idea that when a person steps into the trap you set, the roles of hunter and prey have quietly swapped. After school tonight, this vial of samples will be in the hands of the most authoritative third-party testing organization. In the 3rd week, the anomaly finally rose to the surface like an undercurrent beneath the water. Irreversible. Every afternoon at 3 o'clock, when the two delivery workers in black uniforms pushed a refrigerated box to the end of the hallway. The air in Class 3-1 would solidify in an instant. In the originally tranquil classroom, the sound of synchronized inhalation would rise, and everyone's eyes would fixate on those delicate paper cups like hungry wolves. Even the most diligent students would pause their writing at that moment, their eyes red with longing, waiting for that sip of sweetness. Why hasn't it reached me yet? Leo, fidgeting, slammed his desk, his fingers twitching nonstop, a fine bead of sweat forming on his forehead. Daisy, is today's milk tea 5 minutes late? My head hurts so much it feels like it's going to crack. I feel nauseous, dizzy. Zoe pressed a hand to her chest, her face as pale as paper, yet she still craned her neck, eyes brimming with greed. Give me a sip, just one sip and I'll be fine, and I can tackle 2 more sets of practice questions. Sitting by the podium, Daisy reveled in this sense of being depended on and in control. She rose slowly, gracefully adjusting her skirt, and did not cut across the class to distribute the milk tea as she had before. Don't hurry, everyone. Daisy's voice was soft, yet carried an undeniable sense of control. The family recipe has been upgraded, because the ingredients are extremely scarce and expensive. From today, the ordinary version of free milk tea can only ensure basic supply. The custom deluxe edition with double the effect is limited in quantity. With those words, the classroom erupted in an uproar. Deluxe version? Daisy, how can we get the deluxe version? Leo pushed forward eagerly, the red veins in his eyes more pronounced. Daisy smiled slightly and set a form on the podium. Very simple. Gauco is a team battle. From now on, daily test scores among the top 10 in the class, or those who voluntarily undertake class volunteer service or contribute to me, will be given priority to use the custom deluxe edition. As for everyone else, you can only drink the ordinary version. This is hardly a dessert share. It is naked benefit binding and level classification. By exploiting this addictive beverage, Daisy, in just 3 weeks, transformed a class that had spoken through grades and conduct into a small group centered entirely on her. If you want to stay in a heightened mental state, if you don't want to fall behind, you must bow to her. Listen to her orders. I choose. I'm willing to help Daisy organize revision materials. Leo spoke first, his tone nearly solicitous. I'm in too. Daisy, I'll take over your dorm duties from now on. Zoe chimed in, eager, afraid of falling behind and losing the chance to become smarter. Watching this group of crazy and humble people, I quietly sat in the second to last row, a neutral pen in my hand drawing meaningless lines on the scrap paper. Claire, what about you? Daisy's voice suddenly cut through the crowd and landed on me. She held a cup of specially crafted milk tea with a gilded package, stepping gracefully toward me. You're the face of our class. If you want this deluxe cup, today's group leader's job organizing the homework will be handed over to you. What do you say? Countless jealous, envious, and hostile gazes instantly shot toward me. In the previous life, they looked at me with the same gaze, treating me as a stumbling block in their path. I looked up, my face not showing any airs or resistance, but rather revealing a fear and gratitude that was almost overdue. Can you really give it to me, Daisy? I stood up abruptly, even colliding with the desk edge in my excitement. Thank you so much. I'll take care of organizing the homework, and you can command me to do any other chores later. Daisy smiled contentedly, her eyes brimming with contempt and satisfaction. In her view, I, a once incomparable academic god, was finally beneath her feet, reduced to an obedient lackey doing her bidding. She handed me the so-called premium edition drink. I took it, plunged the straw in sharply in front of her, then expertly sealed the straw opening with my tongue as before, feigning eagerness to gulp it down. This is unbelievable. I feel so much more alert already, I said, wiping my mouth and staring at her with shining eyes. Glad you like it, just keep working hard, Daisy said, patting my shoulder like a pet owner stroking a well-behaved animal. That afternoon, I walked into the office carrying a thick stack of exercise books. Taking advantage of a moment when no one was looking, I poured the entire premium edition milk tea into a prepared acid-resistant glass bottle and carefully harvested the distinct fingerprint Daisy had left on the cup lid. A preliminary report from an authoritative testing agency had already reached my encrypted email a few days earlier. The results revealed that the milk tea contained highly concentrated banned central stimulants and a trace amount of a never-before-seen neurotoxin. Short-term consumption would dramatically increase dopamine release, creating an illusion of improved memory and endless energy. Long-term use, however, would severely damage cortical neurons in the brain, causing intense drug dependence. Once discontinued, users would suffer from severe headaches, hallucinations, anxiety, and even sudden mental disturbances under high-stress situations. And this so-called premium edition? It contained double the dose of the banned ingredients. Daisy was handing out poison directly to them, while they scrambled over each other, flattered with fawning servility just for the chance to consume a single drop. When I walked out of the office, I saw Leo arguing furiously in the hallway with Zoe for hogging his premium edition allocation, nearly shoving each other. This drink was left for me by Daisy. How dare you steal it? Leo screamed, his eyeballs bulging. I scored 3 points higher than you. By the rules, it should be mine. Zoe shot back, clawing several bloody scratches into Leo's hand. Once close classmates, the monitor and the top student, were now shedding all pretense over half a cup of poison, exposing themselves as beasts acting out in grotesque desperation. There are 50 days left until the college entrance exam. The atmosphere in Class 1 of Senior 3 has shifted from the previously intense panic of endless practice tests to an odd and morbid restlessness. My desk is piled high with thick simulation exam papers. Yet unlike before, my name has quietly slipped from the top spot to 5th place on the past 2 weekly test rankings. Meanwhile, Zoe and Leo, who once trailed behind me, have surged ahead by drinking Daisy's premium milk tea every day, boldly claiming the 1st and 2nd positions. Look at this, Zoe sneered, stepping over my desk in her heels while clutching the latest report card, her voice sharp and mocking. Some people pretend to be capable enough, but when it comes to the final push, they still lack stamina, right? If it weren't for Daisy's charity in feeding you a daily basic version, I suspect you'd struggle to even maintain a top 10 ranking. Leo added, slamming his perfect score math paper onto my corner of the desk. His eyes were bloodshot, his emaciated figure still unnervingly hyperactive. Claire, weren't you always good at pretending? Now do you realize who's the real genius? You're in charge of the bulletin board next week. Zoe and I are fully focused on claiming the provincial top honors. We don't have time for such trivialities. I lowered my head, obediently gathering papers and replying with just the right amount of murmured resentment and fear. Understood, class monitor. I'll get it done. Seeing me so compliant and broken-hearted, Leo laughed triumphantly and immediately circled back to fawn over Daisy. They had no idea that every exam question I incorrectly answered during those weekly quizzes was in fact the outcome of precise point calculation by me. Strategic suppression of one's own score was far harder than scoring perfect marks. I had to maintain my ranking in a mid to upper position, just high enough to appear competitive, yet low enough to never attract suspicion or raise alarms. To stay in the background was the best cover. Every noon, I would deliberately puncture my milk tea straw in full view of everyone, making a noisy slurping sound. But in truth, I kept the tip of my tongue tightly pressed against the straw's opening, never allowing myself to swallow even a drop. Once the coast was clear and no one was watching, I'd secretly transfer portions of the liquid into hidden sample vials. To prevent anyone from noticing changes in my physiological condition, I carried a heavy bag every day, containing vitamins I personally prepared, light soup nourishing nerves and brain health, along with top-grade meals. While they suffered, their brains being artificially drained by toxic substances that left them increasingly gaunt, my physical condition and cognitive performance were gradually reaching unprecedented peaks. Meanwhile, cracking fractures were visibly widening within the classroom. As the exam drew closer, anxiety seeped through the atmosphere like poison gas. Regular-made milk tea proved less effective now. Many students began suffering from severe headaches, insomnia, and mood swings. They became desperate to obtain even a lick of Daisy's premium concoction. Daisy, I cleaned the entire teaching building's trash today, so give me your premium drink. Why should it be yours? I helped Daisy draft an entire essay outline for her last night. It's mine. 2 girls who had previously been inseparable erupted into a physical fight in the hallway. viciously yanking each other's hair and screaming foul curses at the top of their lungs, echoing throughout the entire floor. As for Daisy, the entire crisis's mastermind, she simply sat elegantly on the teacher's desk, legs crossed, smiling calmly as she watched these crazed loyal dogs fight and bleed for her. She relished the divine sense of controlling others' fates. "All right, enough fighting." Daisy spoke slowly, took out a cup of the premium edition and placed it on the podium. "Today's cup goes to Leo. After all, Leo recently helped me discipline a few people from the neighboring class who talked about me behind my back. His performance is the best." Upon hearing this, a wild smile erupted in Leo's eyes, like a vicious dog that had just gotten a bone, scrambling up to scoop up the milk tea, gulping it down, his face revealing a nearly spasmodic sense of pleasure. And Zoe, who didn't get it, instantly turned ruthlessly sinister. She fixed her gaze on Leo's nape, her jaw trembling slightly from the strain, her hand hanging at her side clenched into a tight fist, nails digging deeply into the flesh. I sat in the corner, coldly observing these intrapersonal fights sparked by desire and bait. Benefits distribution is always unequal, and this false alliance built on highly addictive drugs is more fragile than a sheet of paper. I don't need to make a move at all. I just need to quietly watch them compete and gnaw at each other for this poison, pushing each other into the abyss. After school, I went alone to a nearby quick print shop and sent a prepared anonymized report to the City Food and Drug Administration and the City Public Security Bureau's complaint email inbox using an anonymous account. The materials included third-party authoritative verified composition test reports, illegal drug identification reports, and the milk tea distribution schedule and list of involved personnel that I had secretly recorded for days. 30 days left until the Gaokao. The scorching sun had baked the plastic track on the school playground until they emitted a pungent smell. Yet the classroom of Senior 3 Class 1 was heating up to a near madness. This morning, Daisy appeared on the podium wearing an exquisite, custom-made white designer dress, looking like a goddess descended from heaven. Behind her, four burly porters hoisted 8 giant insulated coolers and slammed them down at the back of the classroom. Opening the coolers, mist billowed out as they revealed rows upon rows of beautifully packaged milk teas. "Classmates," Daisy smiled radiantly, her voice echoing through the room's speakers across the entire floor. "To help you achieve ultimate breakthroughs in these final months, I've decided, starting today, not just in our class but in every Senior 3 classroom across the school. Premium Mind Evolution. Milk tea will be freely supplied without limit. No quotas. If you want it, take it whenever you want." Her words sent the entire third year into absolute ecstasy. Students from neighboring classes flooded the corridor toward us like a tidal wave, screaming and cheering until it nearly tore the roof off the teaching building. The once serious and solemn senior review building instantly transformed into a feverish carnival. Long live Daisy. Daisy is our savior. With this, I've got to get into a top-tier university. Ha ha ha. Leo was the first to tear open his cup, gulping down 2 large mouthfuls in a rush. Drinking too quickly, the tea ran down his neck and soaked the collar of his shirt. His sunken eyes were cradled in more bloodshot veins than ever, yet his face twisted into a feverishly manic smile. "Unlimited. Finally unlimited. Zoe, you can no longer take it from me." Zoe ignored him completely. She yanked 2 coolers over and frantically stuffed teacups into her backpack, movements swift as a robber, her eyes flickering with desperate and hollow hunger. No one questioned how this miraculous milk tea could be supplied endlessly. No one cared about their gradually deteriorating bodies after prolonged drinking. In the minds of this group of people, already rendered irrational by toxins and temptation, this sweet, intoxicating liquid represented the sole shortcut to a glorious future. I stood in the corner of the classroom, observing coldly this bizarre and irrational frenzy. "Claire, don't just stand there." Daisy approached me with a smile, shoving a bag full of plastic trays for distributing milk tea into my hands. "You've been so obedient lately. How about you assist me today in passing out milk tea to the whole school? We'll remind everyone of your contribution." Her so-called honor wasn't gift at all, it was clearly just using me as cheap, convenient labor, ensuring I'd become her loyal servant. "Of course, Daisy. It's exactly what I should do." I lowered my head, my voice obedient past reason, trembling with mock gratitude. I accepted the tray, carefully placing sealed cups of premium milk tea on it, Then I weaved through the frenzied crowd, walking like an elegant yet chilling ferryman, personally handing cup after cup of this deadly sweet-smelling tea to those wicked mouths twisted by thirst and greed. Here. Your milk tea. I smiled and handed the cup to the boy who once pushed me off the rooftop. Thank you. Thanks, Claire. He snatched the tea and, impatiently piercing the seal, tilted his head back and greedily gulped it down. Take your time. I laughed more brightly, glancing at him fondly, yet beneath my eyes flickered a glacier that had frozen over millennia. In my last life, I tried desperately to tear through this layer of illusory pretense, pleading with them to remain lucid. But I ended up shattered beyond recognition, disgraced and spat on by all. In this life, since you chose to sell your souls to the devil, hoping to rise by crooked means, how could I be ashamed to interrupt your beautiful dream? Drink. Drink to your heart's content. Drink down your reason, your nerves, your future, all into your stomach, turning into the most dazzling mirage. For an entire month, the third-year high school students have been immersed in a false prosperity propped up by drugs. Everyone believes their thinking is as swift as a god, sleeping only 2 hours each night yet still full of energy. Everyone thinks they are about to meet what seems like a bright and brilliant future. And behind this revelry, only I know that the police's covert investigation is nearing its end. The evidence collection by the Drug Administration has long been completed, and the nervous system severely eroded by prohibited substances are teetering on the brink of collapse. June 7th, the first day of the Gaokao. The morning sun pierces the thin mist, dyeing the security lines outside the exam hall with a cold, golden hue. The air is filled with suffocating tension as parents' prayers, traffic police whistles, and the exam hall announcements mingle together. I wear clean, tidy school uniform, with a backpack slung over one shoulder, and walk lightly through the school gate. Not far in front of me, students from class senior 3-1 are huddled around the flower bed outside the exam hall, in a disorderly cluster. Once pumped and arrogant, they now reveal a grotesque and terrifying pallor. Months of consuming large doses of banned substances have left their brain nerves on the brink of collapse. And today, due to strict exam rules, no one is allowed to take water bottles or drinks into the exam hall. The supply is cut off. Starting now. Bubble tea. Daisy. Why hasn't the bubble tea arrived today? Leo crouches on the floor, his hands gripping his own hair so tightly that his eyes protrude, his face pale to a grayish blue. His body trembles violently, cold sweat dripping down his chin. Don't yell. I have a terrible headache too. Zoe leans against a tree trunk, hands clasped over her head, eyes empty, gaze unfocused. I can't remember the formulas at all. Why is my head blank? Daisy? Give me the bubble tea. However, Daisy, who is usually the one to appear flamboyantly and bask in others' admiration, now hides behind her mother, looking equally ghastly. She herself has been drinking in small amounts for a long time, though the dose is far smaller than Leo's. But under the double pressure of the enormous Gaokao stress and supply cutoff, she seems irritable and frightened, her eyes full of panic. Why are you looking at me? Don't you know the exam hall doesn't allow drinks? Daisy screams, her voice easing into an unhidden bluff of bravado. If you can't do well, don't blame me. What did you say? Leo suddenly stands up, his reason long since gone due to extreme withdrawal symptoms and neurotic headaches. Like a mad beast, he lunges at Daisy. You promised that as long as I drank it I'd ace the exam. Give me the bubble tea. Give it to me. The scene becomes a chaos. Parents and security guards rush forward to subdue the furious Leo and pin him to the ground. Candidates, please enter swiftly. The examination is about to begin. The proctor's stern urging voice cuts through the farce. The security guards loosened Leo and the dazed Zoe, who then stagger into the exam room like walking corpses, dragging their heavy feet. As the warm-up bell sounds, the classroom door slowly closes. I sit at my assigned seat, placing my pencil and admission ticket neatly at the corner of the desk. The sound of flipping exam papers fills my ears, and also the faint moans of pain coming from all around. When the highly difficult Chinese language test paper is handed out, the intense stimulation finally triggers the nerves that had long been fragile. In the seat to my left front, Leo stares at the ancient poetry and writing on the paper. His eyes suddenly lose their focus. His fingers scratch at the desk frantically, producing a series of souring scraping sounds. The dopamine that had long been drained by the illicit drugs is completely exhausted, replaced by overwhelming hallucinations and excruciating pain. My head hurts so much, so many bugs biting my brain. Leo wails in a tragic cry, suddenly tearing the exam paper on the desk into pieces and flipping himself over to the ground, convulsing in agony. Quiet! Examinees, please maintain discipline. The invigilator rushes over in shock. Not only Leo. The room next door soon echoed with the sound of something heavy hitting the floor and high-pitched screams. Zoe had suffered a complete neurological overload as she faced her first reading comprehension question, foaming at the mouth and collapsing unconscious, then being hastily wheeled out on a stretcher by arriving medical personnel. Across the examination hall, those students from Class 1, Grade 12 who had once frantically rushed to buy and guzzle the immortal milk tea collapsed one after another. Some drew aimless scribbles on their papers due to excruciating headaches. Others lost their minds on the spot from auditory hallucinations, wailing and sobbing uncontrollably. They had once pinned their hopes on shortcuts, using toxins as intelligence, replacing effort with delusions. Now, as illusory bubbles were ruthlessly punctured by reality, all that remained was unbearable agony and utter ruin. I calmly averted my gaze and tightened my grip on the gel pen in my hand. Without artificial stimulation from drugs, only solid accumulation process and a state of complete clarity remained. The pen tip glided over the clean answer sheet, leaving smooth and flawless trails as the once daunting problems unraveled effortlessly before my eyes. 2 weeks after the Gaokao, the whole city was shrouded in a tense, oppressive atmosphere. The parent group for Class 3-1 had long ago turned into a pot of porridge. During the Gaokao, dozens of students experienced hallucinations, convulsions, and even withdrawals, making the local headlines. In the early hours of June 23, the Score Inquiry channel officially opened. I sat in my study, the faint glow of the computer screen illuminating my calm face. As the web page refreshed, a string of brilliant numbers jumped clearly onto the screen. Chinese 142, Math 150, English 148, Comprehensive 298, total 738. Provincial Science top scorer. I calmly closed the page. This was the height I deserved. Everything that was stolen in my previous life was now returned to my hands without a single flaw. Meanwhile, the Class 3-1 WhatsApp group had already become a hell on earth. The once highly anticipated provincial top scorer, Zoe, had a total score of only a pathetic a little over 200, with several main subjects recorded as 0 due to fainting in the middle of the exam. The class monitor, Leo, was even expelled from the entire exam results for tearing up the test paper and losing control of his mind in the exam. As for the others, their scores plummeted in a single bound, and they hadn't even reached the basic college line. The months of anger, despair, and regret had accumulated, and they exploded at this moment. Daisy, come out! How did you promise us back then? Leo's mother sent a long voice message in the group, her voice sharp to the point of distortion. Our Leo used to be in the top 3 every exam, and now he even got a 0. The psychiatrist says his brain nerves are severely damaged. Is there something wrong with your milk tea? Exactly. If it weren't for your milk tea, how could my daughter possibly convulse in the exam? You killer. You owe my daughter a future. Zoe's father also tagged Daisy frantically in the group. The people who once treated Daisy as a savior, a god, tore off all their gentleness and flattery in that moment, like a pack of wild dogs tearing at prey, pouring all their anger and despair onto Daisy. Daisy, who had been playing dead and not replying, was finally forced to post a message in the group. But her reply was chillingly cruel. Everyone, speak cleanly. I bought everyone free milk tea. Did I force you to drink it? If you weren't putting in the effort yourself and your exam psychology is weak, you fainted, why blame me? Moreover, every day the milk tea was distributed by Claire. If there's poison to be blamed, it's probably her. This first place who's afraid you'll surpass her, secretly poisoning it, right? One stone stirred 1,000 waves. The desperate crowds immediately turned their guns onto me. Yes, Claire. She's the one who distributes milk tea to the whole school. No wonder she always smiles as she hands it to us. She herself hardly drinks any, yet she urges us to drink more. Claire, you calculating witch. To keep your first place, you even poisoned the whole class. The online curses and threats flooded the screen. A few minutes later, several taxi cabs screeched to a halt outside my apartment building. Leo, with bloodshot eyes and a gaunt frame, flanked by Zoe's family and more than a dozen frantic parents, charged up the stairs, violently pounding on my door. "Claire, get out here!" Leo roared outside the door, kicking the iron door. "You ruined all of us. You owe us an explanation today." Faced with the deafening uproar and threats from outside, I did not panic in the slightest. I walked slowly to the door, adjust my collar with a measured gesture, and a cold, merciless smile curves at the corners of my lips. In the last life, you were the same, unreasonably pinning all the blame on me and forcing me to the rooftop to push me off the building. And in this life, do you think I'm still the same soft target that you can trample on? The one who would take the fall for others? I reach out and push the door open. The noisy crowd outside suddenly brightens, and Leo swings his fist toward my face. "Hit me." I look at him coldly, my gaze bearing such pressure that his fist hangs in midair. "If you land this punch, you won't even get your college admission letter, and you'll spend the rest of your life in a detention center." The crowd is overwhelmed by the strong calm and coldness emanating from me, and for a moment no one dares to step forward. "Claire, stop pretending." Zoe's mother sobs, pointing at me. "You're the one who ruined Zoe." "Daisy said it too, the milk tea was in your hands." "Daisy said it?" I raise an eyebrow, and a look of contempt crosses my face. "The mastermind who poisoned you all. You still treat her words as gospel? Pathetic." I take out my phone and press play. The speakers immediately broadcast Daisy's sweet yet sinister voice, along with a recording of the dialogue from the authority expert at the testing agency. The recording clearly played Daisy's arrogant and cruel voice, along with the expert analysis of a professional tester on the ingredients of the milk tea. "As long as you get them to drink it on time and in the right amounts, these addictive and stimulating ingredients will make them look radiant for a short while. They'll misbelieve themselves to be geniuses. When they can't live without it completely, I only need to slightly adjust the dosage, and I can squeeze the whole class into my palm." The cold voice echoed in the dead silent corridor. The once noisy and pushing parents and classmates froze in place. Leo's raised fist trembled violently in midair, his eyes nearly bulging out of their sockets, his lips quivering constantly. This is Daisy's voice?" Zoe's mother turned pale as paper. Pale and distraught as she took 2 steps back. "No, impossible." Daisy said this magical formula could enhance brain power. Leo clutched his head in pain, a beast-like whimper rising from his throat. "Secret formula?" I looked at this utterly ridiculous mob, my eyes filled with endless derision. From the very first day of the 100-day oath-taking ceremony, every cup of so-called divine milk tea you drank was nothing but poison containing illegal central nervous system stimulants and highly addictive chemical ingredients. I turned to the side, retrieved a thick stack of paper documents from a drawer in the living room, and in front of everyone threw them at Leo's feet. There were dozens of reports stamped with the red seal of national-level authoritative testing institutions, and over these 3 years I had meticulously recorded every detail. Milk tea deliveries, batch numbers, and video sampling records. In the last life, even on the day of the 100-day oath-taking, I knew there was a problem with this stuff. I looked down from to them. "Superior, I tried to warn you. I urged you. But how did you treat me? You insulted me as jealous. Said I blocked your path to becoming excellent, even to please Daisy. You treated me as a thorn in your side. You fought for that poisonous liquid like dogs in the classroom, flatters. Betray your dignity. Now you've become neurotically damaged. Lunatic test takers in the exam hall, it's not just Daisy who ruined you. It's your own greed and stupidity. You have buried your own future with your own hands." Each word pierced like a slamming into their chests. Several parents trembled, picked up the test reports lying on the ground, looking at the clear phrases severe central nervous system damage, extremely toxic prohibited additives, etc. Their vision dimmed, and they collapsed on the spot, beating their chests and wailing. "Oh my goodness! What have we done? My son, your whole life has been ruined by this toxic milk tea." Leo knelt on the ground, looking at the stark black and white report. The last thread of madness in his eyes finally shattered. turning into boundless despair and remorse. He lifted his head, tears streaming down his face, and looked at me. Claire, since you knew all along, why didn't you report it? Why did you let us drink it? Because it was your own choice. I looked at him coldly. I'm not a savior, and I have no obligation to sacrifice myself for a group that's ready to tear me apart at any moment. If you enjoyed the illusory pleasure brought by the drugs, you must bear the catastrophe they bring. As for reporting, I pulled out my phone, pressed the dial button crisply, and the screen showed the progress of real name tip-off handling. Do you really think I spent this half year just watching the show? In these 3 months of your blind frenzy and mutual trampling, I had already organized every sealed sample collected, fingerprint samples, supply chain trace records, and the incriminating evidence of this illicit additives production chain into a highly standardized legal file, and I submitted it under real names to the Municipal Food and Drug Administration and the City Public Security Bureau's Criminal Investigation Division. I did not resort to any private punishment, nor did I violate the law in the slightest. I stood on an absolutely clear-headed high ground, using law and facts as my sharpest weapons to drive that group of abusers and poisoners step by step into a dead end. Now, the public authority has formally filed a case. I put away my phone and looked down at the people whose faces were ashen, saying loftily, rather than go crazy at me here, you should go to the police station and find a way to account for the rest of your lives. The corridor echoed with wails. The once arrogant top students and the once invincible class monitor, at this moment like shells that had lost their souls, crawled down the stairs in a daze. I watched their pitiful backs as they left, and slowly closed the door. If the judge of law is a sword suspended above, then public opinion is a blazing fire that uproots evil from its roots. On the morning after the anonymous tip was delivered to the regulatory authorities, the complete set of explosive materials I had meticulously prepared long ago went online simultaneously on major mainstream social platforms. It was not an emotional accusation, but a hard-hitting investigative report with clear logic and solid evidence. The headline was simple and direct, yet shocking. Exclusive revelation by a Gaokao top scorer. The myth of divine milk tea behind prohibited drugs and the ruin of hundreds of students. In the long article, I used a first-person perspective to objectively and thoroughly outline all the events of the past 6 months. The piece included stamped authentication documents of prohibited chemical ingredients from authoritative agencies, high-precision molecular structure comparison images, and multiple segments of clear footage and audio samples showing Daisy personally sending out VIP milk tea, drugging people, and luring students into addiction. To prevent suppression by public relations pressure, I copied this report to several nationally renowned investigative media outlets and authoritative reporters in the field of education. 1 stone, 1,000 ripples. At a time when Gaokao results are released and society is highly concerned with education and food safety, this exposé exploded across the entire internet within just 3 hours. Gaokao top scorer blows the whistle firsthand. Campus Belle's free milk tea contains serious illegal ingredients. Truth about hundreds of examinees' mental breakdowns in the exam room. Dozens of related topics surged to the top of hot search lists on major social platforms with unstoppable momentum, and the reading count instantly exceeded hundreds of millions. In the comments sections, millions of netizens vented their outrage. For illusory grades, they poison classmates? This is basically murder by intent. So terrifying. Such highly addictive neurotoxins can actually enter a high school campus so publicly. Demand severe punishment for the mastermind. This demon must not escape justice. The tide of public opinion swept through the city with unstoppable force. Daisy's father, who had originally tried to hide the truth by greeting people and pulling strings, saw all his networks collapse overnight under enormous social attention and stern instructions from higher authorities. The City Market Supervision Administration and the Public Security Bureau quickly issued an official notice confirming the authenticity of the explosive revelations and announced the formation of a dedicated task force to conduct a thorough investigation. That afternoon, the Thinking Ascend's milk tea headquarters in the city center's busiest district and its underground production hideout were sealed off. I stood among the crowd near the cordon, dressed in neat casual wear and wearing sunglasses. Daisy, once arrogant and self-assured, was now being handcuffed by 2 female officers and escorted out of the office building. Her brand-name dress was crumpled, her carefully curled long hair had fallen into disarray, and the delicate makeup on her face was smeared by tears and sweat. Behind her, Several implicated R&D personnel and production supervisors were also dragged toward the police cars. As if sensing something, Daisy lifted her head just before getting into the car, and through the bustling crowd, she looked precisely at me standing in the shadows. Her eyes contained endless fear, disbelief, and extreme resentment. I slowly took off my sunglasses, and, across the surging crowd, returned her gaze. I did not wear the triumphant smile of a winner, nor did I show any mercy. I simply watched her calmly, with a cold gaze as if she were a lifeless object, then slightly curled the corners of my lips and silently spoke 2 words. Goodbye. Daisy's pupils immediately dilated with fear, and she seemed to be drained of all strength, her face turning pale as she was pushed into the police car. With the comprehensive and in-depth investigation by the police and market regulation authorities, this nationwide shocking campus poison milk tea case has finally reached the final judicial trial. Inside the grand courtroom, the atmosphere was solemn and heavy. I sat in the front row of the plaintiff's seat and witness seat, my posture upright, my gaze clear. Behind me sat classmates from Class 1, Grade 12, alongside their families. At the defendant's seat stood Daisy, handcuffed and shackled. In just a few months, Daisy, once the most esteemed and adored school goddess, held in high regard by all the boys at school, now looked emaciated, with sunken eyes, thinning and gray hair, radiating a lifeless aura of decay. The judge solemnly struck the gavel and read the verdict in a deep, resonant voice. Defendant Daisy, in pursuit of illicit profit and personal reputation, knowingly produced and distributed on a large-scale chemical substances that were explicitly banned by the state, strongly addictive, centrally acting neurotoxic agents, to minor student groups, both free of charge and for a fee, resulting in multiple students suffering irreversible damage to their central nervous systems, mental disorders, and severe withdrawal symptoms. As per the crime of illegally possessing and distributing toxic substances and the crime of intentional infliction of injury, applying penalties for multiple crimes, defendant Daisy is hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison, deprivation of political rights for 5 years, and fined. No, I didn't do it. I was doing it for everyone's good. I just wanted to help everyone get better grades. The moment Daisy heard the verdict, she completely lost all rationality. On the defendant's stand, she wildly writhed, screaming with desperate, piercing cries until she was forcibly escorted out of the courtroom by 2 judicial police officers. The tears of regret were not only shed by Daisy. After the judgment, the courtroom corridor was a mess. Former arrogant class president Leo, who had torn exam papers, assaulted others, and suffered severe neurological damage resulting in behavioral impairment, not only failed to obtain his high school diploma but also had to undergo mandatory psychiatric rehabilitation. His mother, with grayed hair, supported Leo, who could no longer speak a complete sentence and drooled onto his chest as they slowly walked past me, their eyes vacant. Then there was former sarcastic and emotionally detached genius Zoe, who, due to severe neurological toxin residue, suffered extreme memory loss and lost all ability to retake school or sit for the college entrance exams again. Sitting in a wheelchair, her gaze blank ahead, the pride she once had was now completely shattered, destined to spend the rest of her life mired in endless pain and regret. And those classmates who had once followed Daisy in mocking me, isolating me, even cyberbullying me in online groups, all became victims of this greedy game. They lost not only their chances to enter ideal universities but also permanent physical injuries, now desperately struggling at society's lowest rung. As they passed by me, the arrogance and jealousy once present in their eyes were gone, replaced only by deep-rooted fear and hopelessness. They finally understood that from the very moment they greedily consumed their first dose of poison, agreeing blindly to wrongdoing, fate had already set in motion the wheels leading to their self-destruction. I stood up, slowly straightened my shirt collar, and walked out the courthouse doors without looking back. In the capital city of September, the autumn air is crisp and refreshing, with gilded ginkgo leaves gently swaying in the breeze. In front of the nation's top academic institution, a massive red arch bears a banner that reads warmly welcoming the class of 2026 freshmen. Amidst the bustling crowd were only new faces beaming with youthful vitality and proud smiles. I wore a simple, neat white shirt and well-washed jeans, carried a black backpack over one shoulder, and held my admission letter as I strolled alone along the tree-lined avenue. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled light upon my body, bringing forth a long-forgotten inner warmth. I took in a deep breath of the fresh air, my lungs filled with the scent of freedom and hope. No more of that eerie sweetness, no suffocating greed, nor the oppressive wind that had howled in my ears before I plummeted to my death. At the freshman registration desk, several upperclassmen recognized my name on the admission letter and immediately looked at me in surprise and awe. "You're Claire? The provincial top scorer in sciences, the one who single-handedly assisted police in solving a major campus case? Oh my God, finally seeing you in person. Our professor once cited your scientific report as a classic case in class. Amazing!" Amid their flattery and praise, I only smiled politely, handed over my ID, steady and composed. "Thank you. I am Claire." After finishing the registration procedures, I took the dormitory key and walked along the winding campus path towards the dormitory building. On the way, my phone gave a light vibration. It was a news alert I had set, originating from back home, the small town that had imprisoned me for 2 lifetimes. The news update showed a brief official announcement about the aftermath of the campus drug-laced milk tea case. It is reported that after offender Daisy was imprisoned, due to severe withdrawal symptoms and psychological instability, she repeatedly lost emotional control in prison and has now been transferred to a psychiatric custody ward for supervision and treatment. As for the victim students involved, Leo, Zoe, and others, having suffered irreversible neurological damage, have officially registered as disabled and are currently undergoing long-term social function rehabilitation training at local recovery centers. Accompanying photos depicted Daisy in prison, her once prized long wavy hair shaved off, dressed in inmate clothing, crouched lifelessly in the corner with vacant eyes. Street photographs showed Zoe, once so full of arrogance, incapacitated in a wheelchair, pushed by her aged parents laughing foolishly as she begged passers-by for snacks. Leo was restrained on his hospital bed with straps because of uncontrollable tantrums, snarling hideously, eyes wildly distorted. I stared at the faces on the screen, those once arrogant bastards who had thrown me into hell. Yet my heart remained utterly tranquil. In my previous life, they had stripped me of my right to live with cold concrete underfoot. This life, I am punishing them by absolute safety, clarity, and fairness under the law, making them soberly suffer until they grasp what true eternal damnation means. Not revenge, not martyrdom, I simply let them rot slowly within the murky harvest of their own sins, which is the best punishment they deserve. With a press of the delete button, I wiped this news clean from my phone along with all the dark memories tied to that city. Ascending to the rooftop terrace at the top of the dormitory building, I pushed open the heavy door. Wind swept coolly across the rooftop, revealing panoramic views of the entire ancient yet modern campus below. In the distance, the library stood grand and magnificent. On the lawn, students exchanged words and debated ideals passionately. I stepped to the edge of the rooftop, placing both hands on the cool metal railing. In my past life, it was precisely at the same height that group fanatically possessed demons had pushed me off a cliff to my doom. And today, here I stand once more. Yet this time, beneath my feet echoed not a dead end, but an infinite horizon of unparalleled breadth and brilliance. My very own destiny stretching endlessly ahead. I extended my right hand, palm outstretched, letting the breeze softly pass through my fingers. No one can control my fate anymore. No one can block my light. With my own hands, I was reborn through blood and fire, reaching the peak of my own life. Clouds vanish and sunlight spreads far and wide. The beginning of this story was a bloody nightmare, and the ending will be an unparalleled legend I wrote myself. An aside, in late autumn evening, the setting sun dyed the red brick wall of the Capital University a quiet orange red. In the library's study room, the seats were all taken, and outside the window the leaves rustled with the wind. I sat at a window seat. In front of me thick foreign language reference books and several advanced mathematics frontier works were spread. On the dense sheets of calculation paper, the sound of the pen nib gliding across the page was in light. In less than 2 months of enrollment, I had already earned the highest prize scholarship and become a young researcher in the advisor's lab after securing several papers published in core journals, relying on solid professional foundations. There are no shortcuts, no poisons, and no so-called divine assistance. All glory and height are built brick by brick through countless days and nights of wakefulness and effort. My phone gave a light shake by my side. The screen lit up, and a message popped up from an unfamiliar number in my hometown. I opened it. A long voice-to-text message. The sender was Leo's mother. The voice was old, hoarse, with a sob and undeniable despair. "Claire, Aunt, please, could you do me a favor, go find a judge? Or help Leo find a good doctor? He's in the ward shouting about headaches every day, smashing whatever he can. The doctors say the neural tissue in his prefrontal cortex is permanently damaged. His life is ruined. He used to idolize you so much. You were classmates. You should pity me. Please save him." Hearing that harsh cry, I looked composed, not even raising an eyebrow. I casually opened the settings, added this number to the permanent blacklist, and deleted the message completely. Pity? When I was on the rooftop, at the last moment when I was pushed off a tall building, when my parents were weeping, living in despair, did anyone tell me even half a sentence of pity? When they treated me as a thorn in their side, as someone to peel and bone in their scramble for that cup after cup of poisoned milk tea, did they ever imagine there would be today? Adults must pay for their own choices. Greed is what they chose, poison is what they swallowed, and hell is what they walked into step by step themselves. I turned the phone face down on the table, not giving it another thought. At that moment, a senior from my group beside me lightly tapped my table, lowered his voice, and smiled. "Claire, don't be scrolling your phone. Tonight the advisor is organizing a scholarly seminar in the lab, and we're celebrating. Everyone is waiting for you, the main force, to come over." I looked up, meeting his approving and expectant gaze, and a faint, extremely self-assured smile curled at the corners of my mouth. "Okay, I'll finish deriving this equation and then go over." "Good. Hurry up. Everyone's waiting for your big move in the lab," the senior said with a smile and walked away. I turned back, letting my gaze fall again onto the manuscript in front of me. The night outside slowly drew back, stars scattered across a clear and high sky. The bloody nightmare of my previous life had long been erased by the torrent of time, and my true life was only now beginning its most brilliant opening chapter. On this bright road I paved with my own hands, I will, with absolute rationality and clarity, move step by step toward a farther distance.